following video is brought to you by DAZN. Do you like boxing? Do you like MMA? Are you a little beta male who likes darts? Well, if so, DAZN is for you. We just spent $365 million on the most expensive red-headed bitch in the whole entire universe. So please buy DAZN. We need you to buy DAZN. We just spent way more money than we needed to. And please, we need you to buy DAZN. We need you to buy DAZN. It's only $9.99, but please, DAZN.
I ain't really changed, it's the same old rebel, still a radical, I'm passionate, it's just another level. AT told me I should fight back, they don't like that. Just know if you rock the boat, you better have a life raft. BJ told me I should fight back, they don't like that. Just know if you rock the boat, you better have a life raft.
What up, everybody in the YTBC? So, I had actually previously recorded this already when I initially recorded my Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Povetkin video. I never edited it. As time went by, I went ahead and deleted it because I just felt that it wasn't quite as, up to date, relevant, whatever terminology you prefer to use. I just didn't feel that motivation to edit it together because I just felt like I had missed the train. I had missed the bus. I was just late, That's why I included that in the rapid fire. However, I still want to give an account of my experience with DAZN. I still want to give my review of DAZN thus far. Now, I'll tell you right now, I'm not one of these people who is pledging allegiance to any one promoter. I'm not pledging allegiance to any one network. Whatever network is giving me the fights that I want to see, that's who I'm going to promote. That is who I'm going to support. And once a network stops providing me what I want, what I pay them for, then I pull support. I stop recommending it to my friends, family, people on YouTube when it comes to boxing. Okay, I'm telling you right now, my little contract or whatever you want to call it with my cable provider, it actually ends in December, and I'm not renewing my HBO subscription. I don't watch HBO for movies. That's why I got Netflix. That's why I got, Amazon Prime. And to be honest, I can watch any movie I want without ever having a subscription to Showtime or HBO. I only had HBO, or have, because I still have it. That is until December, because of the boxing. The boxing cards I was getting from HBO, I wasn't going to get from anywhere else. So, that is to say, maybe I'm not that target demographic, or I'm just a very small fish in a very big pond. But I'm not, once they pull boxing, I'm done with HBO. Now, Showtime, for the time being, I will keep. ESPN Plus, which is not through the cable provider, as most people know, it's through an app, just like DAZN. I will continue to keep that as long as they are bringing the boxing. And then that brings me to DAZN. Now I'm going to give you my honest opinion of DAZN. All right. at this time, I have seen 2 fight cards on DAZN. One was Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Povetkin. The other one was the Vargas versus Delorme card. Now, there are things I don't like about the app. Let me go ahead and get into that. What I don't like about the app, and these are really just little nitpicky things. These aren't things that are deal breakers for me. Really, the biggest thing I don't like about the app is the fact that they don't display the time for most of the time. You know, I like being able to keep track how much time is left in the round. And not that they don't show it at all, but there's a big amount of time that they're not showing that. You know, and I don't think that little square in the bottom left takes a whole lot away from the experience when you're watching a fight. I think it adds more than it takes away. I mean, you're what, missing a little square of the mat most of the time? Maybe one of the fighters' ass, you know, a little piece. I'm not interested in looking at the fighter's ass. I'm looking at the punches that are being thrown and the punches that are landing and the knockouts. That's what I'm looking for. So that little square in the bottom left, it wouldn't hurt them to keep it up there for longer periods of time. And maybe that's just an American thing. I've never lived in the UK or any other country, so I don't know how they broadcast their boxing matches. But here in the States, I'm accustomed, me personally, to knowing how much time is left in the round. Let me go ahead and talk about the fight cards. Now, as far as Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Povetkin, the fight card itself, the undercards were a little lackluster. Now, I will say this is coming from an American boxing fan's point of view. And that was really more of a UK card. So it's going to be geared more toward the UK crowd. However, I'm not knocking it because I want to learn about these fighters. I want to see if they can intrigue me, if they can make me become a fan. Because I am a boxing fan. Now, the fights weren't terrible. They just weren't as exciting to me as I would have liked them to be. As for the Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Povetkin fight itself, I was thoroughly pleased with that fight. And overall, I didn't feel like the card was a waste of time. It was, you know, what I felt like was some filler that ended with a big bang. Now, as for the Vargas Delorme card, real quick, before I get into that card, I noticed that the production on the Anthony Joshua Povetkin card was very high. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not complaining about that, not one bit. But there was a very big contrast between that card and the production value of the Vargas Delorme card. Now, I could only assume that's because they were shooting the Anthony Joshua fight with much better equipment, being that is a pay-per-view fight in the UK. And they're not going to use different cameras for us in the US. They're going to use the same camera footage. So that's somewhat to be expected. The production value on the Vargas card that I'm about to talk about, I think left a little bit to be desired. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't bad. It's definitely better than, you know, pay-per-views used to watch in the 90s. And I'm talking about production value. I'm not talking about the content itself. I'm not talking about the fights themselves. So don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that Vargas versus Delorme trumps, you know, Ali versus Frazier, for instance, or I know that's not 90s, but or Tyson versus Holyfield. You know, of course it's going to look better than those fights because we have better equipment now. We watch everything in HD these days. Back then, HD wasn't a thing. It didn't exist. We thought that was as good as it was going to get, to be honest. But anyways, let me not get on a tangent. Back to the Vargas versus Delorme fight card. Same problem with the, you know, the time not displaying. But like I said, that's not a deal breaker. That's just my preference. The fight card was overall better than the Joshua one. Like I said, that could be because I'm an American fan, and this was a card that was geared toward Americans. So I naturally should be more pleased with this card than that one. But like I said, don't knock it, because being a boxing fan, you should want to learn about these fighters that you're not necessarily familiar with. So I'm still pleased with that fight card. So don't get it twisted. So, but this one I felt was a lot more my speed, my pace. You know, having the Betterby fight, Betterby versus Johnson. I didn't even realize that was going to be on that fight card. That was actually the fight that I was looking forward to the most out of all the fights. I really didn't even care to see Jesse Vargas, which we'll get to that in a little bit. And I actually meant to give a review of that fight in my rapid fire video, but I forgot. Like I said, I didn't take notes. So, but that was an exciting fight. I didn't expect for Betterby to get knocked down in the second round, you know, and then he came back and was able to knock Johnson out in the fourth round, if I'm not mistaken. You know, that was very exciting. The fight between Miller and was it Adamek, if I'm not mistaken? You know, that wasn't a good fight. You know, a good matchup. But I mean, it was exciting for while it lasted. And that's the thing. Say what you will, but if you watch boxing, chances are you watch it for knockouts. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there's people who like to watch the sweet science, and that's good and all. But at the end of the day, even if you are into the sweet science, you prefer fighters like Terrence Crawford and Lomachenko, because they're masters of the sweet science who still manage to get knockouts. So, at the end of the day, I think most fight fans, whether you're into the Rock'em Sock'em, Come Forward, or Sweet Science, I think at the end of the day, we can all agree on one thing. Knockouts are way more exciting than decisions. So, I can't remember what the first fight was. I don't think it was one that I was particularly interested in. That's probably why. But I do know it ended in a knockout. Oh wait, no it didn't. No it didn't. It was it didn't end in a knockout. It was Roman and I forget the other guy's name. So that one didn't end in a knockout. But and then the main event, Jesse Vargas, he surprised me against Delorme. You know, I thought that was or I shouldn't say he surprised me, but the fight surprised me. It was more exciting than I had expected. I don't particularly care for Jesse Vargas. Just an FYI. I don't get me wrong, I don't think he's a terrible fighter. He just has not made me a fan as of yet. That could change. You know, I'm still not completely sold on Munguia, but I think he gave a better account of himself in his last fight. So, and I know Jesse Vargas is a higher profile, you know, a high profile fighter at the time. You know, Munguia he has a lot of buzz, but he's not really considered high profile yet. And I know that he's, you know, just further along in his career, but I found myself more excited to see Munguia than Vargas. That's just my opinion. But anyways, that fight was a lot more exciting than I had expected. So overall, with DAZN, this is how I see it, okay? With the fight cards that I've seen so far, and the fight cards that we know are to come, at least in the future, because I think the Demetrius Andrade fight card, that is going to be, it was supposed to be better with Saunders, but I think it's still going to be pretty solid. You still got the World Boxing Super Series that's going on DAZN. You still got other things on DAZN. It's not just boxing. DAZN's not a boxing app. It's a sports app, very similar to ESPN, except I feel that DAZN has a much heavier emphasis on boxing than ESPN does, and that is apparent with the deal that they just made with Canelo, $365 million over the course of 5 years. That's not nothing to turn your nose up at. So they're definitely showing that they're serious about this. Not to say that ESPN is not serious about boxing. I just think we know who is putting forth more effort at this point in time. Also, keep in mind, DAZN is twice as much as ESPN Plus as well. So there is that. But that's the other thing. Before I give my final assessment of DAZN, now that they have signed the biggest cash cow here in the United States, I mean, it's no secret I'm not a Canelo fan, but I have to recognize reality, and that is Canelo is the biggest name in boxing here in the United States. Being that they've signed him, and being that they already have Anthony Joshua, who is the biggest cash cow over in the UK, whom I am a fan of, it's very safe to say that DAZN is definitely a major player. In fact, on paper, they are the biggest player. They're shelling out the biggest money. They got the two biggest names right now. Now, as for the rest of the roster, yeah, it still has, there's still something there left to be desired. However, it's only been out for like a month, not even. This app launched on September 22nd. As of today's date, it is October 18th. So even though there is still names left to be desired on this roster, it's only a month old. This isn't HBO that's been out for 40, that's been involved in boxing for 45 years we're talking about. This isn't ESPN, who's been around for who knows how long now, at this point now. Owned by Disney, so backed by the biggest multimedia company in the world. We're not talking about Showtime, who's been involved in boxing for quite some time either. We're talking about an app that has literally been in existence for less than a month. And I think they've done a pretty good job so far. Like I said, I only have one complaint. Actually, no, technically two, because of the production value of the Vargas card. But they're not that big, because even though there's a noticeable difference in quality of the picture itself, it's not bad. It's not terrible. It's not like it's fuzzy. And I've heard a lot of people talk about, that the app cut out on them and stuff. And a lot of these people are people that I heard trashing DAZN way before it was even launched. Chances are these people don't even have DAZN. They're probably just making that shit up, because so far I've had no problems streaming. And if you have had problems streaming, keep in mind that may have to do with your internet. Depending on the internet that you have in your area, you may have streaming problems. That could happen. It's not a cable network. It goes through streaming, which, especially if you're doing things wireless, you could run into problems. And I've heard people say that, you know, nobody wants an app. Nobody wants to watch these fights on their phone. They want to watch it on their TV. Well, first off, you know, this is 2018. Smart TVs are a thing and they're not brand new. Second, even if you don't own a smart TV, it doesn't cost a whole lot of money to get a streaming device. You can get a Roku or a Fire Stick for about $35, sometimes cheaper, sometimes $25. Now, those are name brand. You can get an off-brand streaming device for less. I've seen them as low as $10, and it's been a while since I've looked at them. So you could probably get them for $5 at this point in time. So the whole thing of I don't want to watch fights on my phone is not really a viable excuse. A lot of you are paying $60 to $85 for pay-per-view. If you were to buy a streaming device one time for $35, and then the first month of DAZN is free, you do that 1 month instead of paying for the pay-per-view, it's cheaper. It's cheaper. Now, over the course of a year, DAZN will cost you $110. The reason being is because it's $9.99 a month, and the first month is free. You do the math, that comes out to $110. You're going to get at least 32 fight cards from Matchroom USA. We don't know how much we're getting from Golden Boy, but we know we're getting at least probably about 2 Canelo fights a year for the next 5 years. But let's just talk about the first year, because we're talking about 1 year here. So you're going to get at least 2 Canelo fights. Plus whatever else Golden Boy decides to bring to us. So that right there is 34 guaranteed fight cards over the course of 12 months. Now, back in 2015, a lot of people paid, what was it? Like $110, if I'm not mistaken, for Maypac and HD. That is one fight card that overall the fight card was good, but the main event was lackluster. It wasn't what everybody wanted. I don't know. I anybody who paid and was satisfied with that fight card, I find it hard to take them serious when they want to shit all over an app that's going to cost them the same amount of money, but it's going to give them a lot more fight cards than what they paid for that one. Now, of course, you get what you paid for. So I'm not expecting every single fight card to be spectacular. There's going to be good ones, and there's going to be stinkers. Because let's be honest, a lot of times fights don't really turn out to be as exciting as we think they would be. And other ones that we thought would be boring end up being better. I was surprised by the Hurd Lara fight. Not saying that I thought it was going to be boring per se, but I do think that it ended up being a more aesthetically pleasing than I had anticipated. That's just an example. So before you completely shit on DAZN, I think you should at least watch it for a couple months and then shit on it. My assessment of DAZN is that it's a good app. There's a couple things that they could work on. I think maybe boosting up the undercards a little bit would definitely be great. You know, upping the production value a little bit on those smaller cards would be great. If they don't do either of those things, I'm not mad at it. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, and spending more money with no guarantee that you're going to have a larger return when you're a business may not be the smartest move. So I get that. At the end of the day, I want this thing to succeed. And just to be clear, I want Showtime and PBC to also succeed. Because here's the thing, if all we have is the DAZN, then the DAZN can decide, you know what, we're going to up the price to $30 a month. Or worse. And they would be able to do that because here in the States, we would have nowhere else to turn to. Competition in a market is a good thing. It's never a bad thing. That is why here in the States, the government does whatever they, everything that they can to eliminate monopolies. Because when you do have a monopoly, then that's when that one company can do whatever the hell they want. They can charge you however much they want because they know you have nowhere to go. So this allegiance to a network or allegiance to a promoter, because that's the other thing. If you have one promoter that controls everything, he can give you whatever fights he feels like, or she feels like. He or she would be able to put on whatever fights they feel like, and you would have no say so, because your only other option is to not watch boxing. So it's good to have all these different promoters and all these different networks providing boxing. That's why I have ESPN Plus. If ESPN Plus starts putting out better cards than DAZN, then I can't justify paying $10 a month for DAZN. I'm paying $5 a month for better cards. But at this point in time, it's too early for me to pull support from either of them. ESPN Plus is still fairly new. So that's my assessment. I think the complaints about why I don't want to watch a fight on my phone are completely ridiculous. Anybody with two brain cells to rub together can see that you can just go out and get a streaming device very cheap. If you have a smart TV, the app is already available on there. Now, I didn't check on the Xbox because I have an Xbox One. I used to have a PlayStation 4, but I got rid of it. If it ends up being on there and you already have an Xbox or a PlayStation 4 or whatever, then you don't have to spend no extra money. The thing about, I want to be able to go to the bar and watch it with my friends. They're bars, they're businesses. You don't think that they have the money to invest in a streaming device or in smart TVs? I guarantee you that they already have Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a thing, it's been a thing for quite some time, for at least 10 years. And has progressively become more and more accessible as the years have gone by. So, this idea that bars are not gonna, they're not going to invest a couple bucks in a streaming device, that's ridiculous. If it's gonna bring in, you go to a bar and you spend, three people buy a beer, a pitcher of beer for them and their friends, that more than makes up for the streaming device in a lot of cases. Depends on the bar. See what I'm saying? Like, there's just all this criticism on the app, and it just doesn't make any sense. Now, whether or not it's sustainable, that remains to be seen. That I can't say that I know for sure that it is sustainable. I mean, DAZN just spent $365,000 on a guy that I don't really feel is worth it. However, I personally don't feel that he's worth it. However, in a business sense, I know that he's worth it because it's not about what I value him at. It's about what the public values him at as a whole. So yeah, $365 million on one guy for the course of 5 years. Yeah, it remains to be seen whether or not this is really sustainable. However, there is a reason why here in the States, all year, all we're going to have is 2 pay-per-views. One already happened. The other one's going to happen in December. And we'll see how well that pay-per-view does. The first one did decent, but it didn't meet the expectations that Oscar De La Hoya had for it. So we will see if Wilder Fury meets its expectations. Wilder's claiming that he could make $100 million. I claim that I could also make $100 million if I went out and tried to rob as many people as I could. I could, but am I gonna? No. Yes. The potential, if you're doing anything that makes any kind of money, you have the potential to make $100 million. Now, whether or not that becomes reality is a different story. But I don't think that pay-per-view is sustainable at this time. The company that has had one pay-per-view this far, because the Wilder Fury one hasn't happened yet, the one company that had a pay-per-view this year is now stepping out of boxing. That tells me right there that pay-per-view is not sustainable at this time. Times are changing. Even if apps are not sustainable right this very moment, that doesn't mean that they won't become sustainable in the not so distant future. But anyways, to all my subscribers, anybody watching my videos, or if you just so happen to stump on this video, have you used the DAZN app? What are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's sustainable? Do you have other things that I didn't cover on it that you either like or dislike? Let me know in the comments below. To all my subscribers, anybody watching my videos, or if you just so happen to stump on this video, I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day. Peace.
Undefeated.